Hi, my name is Kristen Aiken, and I am a graduate student from Nazareth College completing my Level 2 fieldwork placement. For my fieldwork project, I created the activity Handwriting Jenga and provided evidence on its effectiveness as an activity to be used in occupational therapy sessions. For Handwriting Jenga, there are 48 blocks in total. Each block has a word side, written in red, and a letter side, written in blue. Some, but not all of the blocks, have a fine motor warm-up side written in green, seen below in the picture. The materials I used to make Handwriting Jenga were a Jenga game set, Sharpie markers in 3 colors, and I used red, blue, and green. And some additional materials that you will need to play include a pencil, writing paper, and potentially dice in a bag or container to put the blocks in. There are 2 ways to play Handwriting Jenga. The first is similar to classic Jenga, where you pull out individual blocks from the tower. Before you begin, determine what side you'll be using for the game, designated in the specific colors for word or letter side. When the student pulls out a block, flip it to determine if there is a handwriting warm-up on the back of the block. If so, complete the warm-up. Then, flip to the side of the designated color and have them write the letter or word that is on the block. After they have finished writing, have them self-evaluate their writing and provide feedback as necessary. Lastly, place the block back on top of the tower and continue play. The second version is using them like dominoes, where the student can knock them all down at the end. For this version, you would need a bag, a sack, or some sort of container to put all the wooden blocks into, and you would also need some dice or a random number generator. Have the students roll the dice to see how many blocks they pull out of the bag. Once they remove the correct number, flip the blocks to the side you're using for gameplay and write the letters or words on the blocks. Once the word or letter is written, have them self-evaluate their writing and provide feedback as needed. Then line them up and topple them over like dominoes. They could choose to do a few rounds before toppling them over or do it round by round. An alternative to this version is having them build a tower or really anything else with the blocks once they have written the words or letters. You can get creative or let your student choose what they would like to do with the blocks. This activity can be used with both younger and older children with a variety of skill level. This activity is also a great group activity, but is also lots of fun for an individual student to play. According to one of the articles I found, this activity is especially beneficial to students with visual perceptual impairments. For beginner students who are working on individual letters, use the letter side. They can copy the letter as is, or to challenge these students, you could ask them to write a word that begins with that letter. For more advanced students, use the word side to copy words, or to challenge them, have them write a sentence with the word. For even more advanced students, have them write a couple of sentences, or however many you feel suits the level of your student. For either way you choose to play, don't forget to have them self-evaluate their writing and provide feedback. This is an important part of improving their skills. I'm going to be focusing on these 4 articles to support the use of this activity. The first article compares occupation-based and handwriting interventions to determine which is more effective in improving handwriting. Occupation-based is described as occupation as the ends, or also as like a bottom-up type approach. Handwriting interventions are described as occupation as means, so a top-down approach, or occupation as the therapeutic change agent. This study was a quantitative repeated measure cohort study. The outcomes used in the study included the test of motor skills, the test of visual perceptual skills, and the print tool. The inclusion criteria is listed in the bottom right corner, but for the interest of time, I'm not going to go over this part specifically for each article, but feel free to check it out. The participants completed pre-tests on first session, received 5 intervention sessions, administered the post-tests, and received home programs to be completed over the summer and then returned for a follow-up. The sessions for both groups included 10 minutes of preparatory activities, 50 minutes of intervention, and 15 minutes on home programs. All goals focused on either origami, Lego activities, coloring, crafts, or Handwriting Without Tears workbooks, Handwriting Without Tears songs, or coloring. It was found that an occupation-based approach was the most effective technique when a child experienced difficulty with visual perceptual skills, such as recognizing size, shape, placement, and orientation of shapes. However, Handwriting Without Tears was more effective in addressing visual motor impairments. It was also found that engaging in in-hand manipulation and kinesthetic awareness as a preparation task was effective to improve handwriting skills. This study suggests that Handwriting Jenga is ideal for students with visual perceptual difficulties or impairments rather than visual motor impairments. Handwriting Jenga incorporates kinesthetic awareness through the addition of handwriting warm-ups, which was also supported by this article. The second article was a systematic review that looked at interventions aiming to improve handwriting. The included studies were randomized or non-randomized controlled trials of interventions that could be used by an occupational therapist to improve written output among school-aged children identified as having difficulties with handwriting. In total, there were 11 included trials broken down into different types of research designs as shown on the screen. Within the included studies, a variety of interventions to remediate handwriting difficulties were examined, shown in the listed categories, which were relaxation, sensory-based training, without handwriting practice, and actual handwriting-based practice. The results from this study suggested that a practice component is necessary for handwriting improvement. So that is, activities with target writing-related performance components, such as in-hand manipulation or kinesthetic awareness, without actually providing an opportunity for handwriting practice, does not appear to be effective in improving written expression. Practice of handwriting is required to improve this skill. An approach to handwriting remediation that focuses on handwriting practice is also consistent with the theory of motor learning, or as defined by this article as a set of processes associated with practice or experience leading to relatively permanent changes in the capability of movement. The researchers did mention that it is unclear from their review whether the handwriting practice component requires a cognitive or a sensory motor component, or some combination of the two. This article suggests that Handwriting Jenga is a good activity as it provides an opportunity to actually practice handwriting along with the kinesthetic awareness piece. It can also be upgraded or downgraded to the student's writing level for an appropriate amount of practice. It provides several opportunities, as I mentioned before, because there are several blocks used in both versions of gameplay, which allows for increased practice. This study also mentioned that it's very important that building motivation for writing practice be incorporated into the treatment plan and strategy, which Handwriting Jenga also does through the game-like way to practice handwriting. Article 3 looked at the effectiveness of a sensory motor and task-oriented approach to improve handwriting in school-age students with handwriting difficulties. In this study, there were 3 groups: a sensory motor group, a task-oriented group, and a control group. The sensory motor group combined a multisensory approach with elements of a task-oriented approach, therefore combining higher and lower level functions. This included 15 minutes of some preparatory activities, which are listed, followed up by handwriting activities with multisensory experiences, with the last 3 sessions including some higher level functions. The task-oriented group focused directly on handwriting practice and higher level functions like feedback, and also included word games. The inclusion criteria for this study is listed in the top right corner. This study was completed in 2 stages, and the distribution of students in each stage can be seen in the bottom left corner. In stage 1, the immediate effects of the intervention were examined by comparing both intervention groups with a non-treatment control group. In stage 2, the long-term intervention effects were measured 4 months post-intervention. In this stage, only the intervention groups were compared. This study also placed an emphasis on some higher-level functions, including parental involvement and self-evaluation. Parental involvement was for the intention of practicing handwriting in other environments, like the home, to aid in a transfer of the skills. The self-evaluation piece, used throughout the study, meant that the students examined their work, stated if they had correct formation, circled their best form letter, and rewrote the letters in a similar manner. This study found that in the short term, both groups were effective at improving legibility and letter formation. Long-term results showed significant gains in both groups, but in more measures of the task-oriented group. Handwriting acquisition requires direct instruction and practice in different tasks and environments. It was also found that spatial organization significantly improved 4 months after the intervention in both groups. This study suggests that handwriting is important and can be effective when in a game-like format, making Handwriting Jenga a supported way to practice handwriting, as long as the students are taking time to use higher-level skills and evaluate their work. This is also a fun activity that is relatively cheap to recommend to a parent who may be looking for activities to do at home with their child. The last article was also a systematic review, but this one looked at the evidence on the use of activity-based or occupation-centered interventions to increase children's participation and learning in the school. The inclusion criteria for the articles is listed in the bottom right corner. The researchers looked at 3 themes for study outcomes: educational participation, literacy participation, and handwriting. Handwriting included the component skills for handwriting, so visual and motor and sensory. It included writing rate and speed, legibility and accuracy, the frequency and amount of handwriting participation. For our purposes, I will report on the handwriting section of their findings. Out of the 46 total studies in the systematic review, 25 of them focused on handwriting interventions. 15 studies examined the handwriting performance of typically developing children, and 10 studies of children with identified handwriting difficulties. And the average age of the participants was 7 years old. It was found that moderate evidence to support interventions to address handwriting legibility outcomes, including therapeutic practice, cognitive strategies such as self-evaluation techniques, and the provision of performance feedback. Therapeutic practice is also an evidence-based approach to improve handwriting legibility. However, in contrast, this evidence indicates that sensory-motor handwriting interventions that address isolated component skills, such as visual perception, kinesthesia, in-hand manipulation, visual motor integration, or biomechanical features of handwriting, have no effect on handwriting legibility. The researchers concluded that isolated skills training to address prerequisite skills for handwriting does not translate to improved handwriting performance. The use of prerequisite skills in intervention must be directly tied to handwriting tasks. So while Handwriting Jenga does include these underlying skills, it also includes actual handwriting practice. This game does not aim to specifically or exclusively work on the isolated skills of handwriting, so the visual perceptual skills or fine motor skills. While it does contain these elements, the research suggests that working on those isolated skills alone is not what results in a change in handwriting performance, and more emphasis should be placed on the actual handwriting, self-evaluation, and practice part. So to wrap up, here's a final look back on what was found through research. Handwriting Jenga benefits students potentially with visual perceptual difficulties. It provides an opportunity to actually practice handwriting, which is important and effective, and super motivating when in a game-like format. It can be easily upgraded or downgraded to the student's writing level for an appropriate amount of practice, and uses higher level skills such as self-evaluation, while also incorporating some of those lower level skills and foundational skills that they need. It's also a fun activity to suggest for parents to use at home for a transfer of skills. Thanks for watching, and here are my references.